good evening, afternoon, or morning, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Terrell Williams, and I serve as the Associate Director for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Office of Admissions at Sloan. Thank you for joining us for another installment of our Identity and Inclusion series. At this event, we will focus on those who identify as Hispanic and Latinx identifiers. Before we begin, I want to start with this land acknowledgement statement. MIT acknowledges Indigenous people as the traditional stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between them and their traditional territories. The land on which we sit is the traditional unceded territory of the Wampanoag Nation, and we acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced occupation of their territory, and we honor and respect the many diverse Indigenous people connected from time immemorial to this land on which we now gather. I firmly believe that through this panel discussion tonight, as well as other recruiting activities that you select to participate in, you will see our commitment to creating a more diverse and inclusive community. I'd like to highlight our mission statement. So the mission of MIT Sloan is to develop principled, innovative leaders who improve the world and to generate ideas that advance management practice. As you will hear tonight, we have students that align with our mission and being able to share their insight on what their experience was like here at Sloan.
Thanks, Terrell, so much. Hi, everyone. It is a pleasure to be with you all this evening. My name's Nancy Nojos. I'm a second-year MBA student here at MIT Sloan. I'm thrilled to be joined by amazing fellow students and alums that are going to be sharing some insights in terms of what it means to be a Latinx, Latine, Hispanic identifying Sloanie. So super thrilled to be with you. A little bit about me: before the MBA, I was in tech, and this past summer, I worked in software due diligence for private equity investors, and it has been an absolute joy to be a Sloan student so far, and I can't wait for the start of the second year. I'm going to turn it over to the panelists to introduce themselves so that you get a chance to hear from them. They're going to give a quick intro in terms of their name, their program, their year, and what they were doing before Sloan and after Sloan if they're an alum, and if they're a current student, what they were doing before Sloan and what they did this past summer for their internship. Santi, can you kick us off?
Hey, Nancy, thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Santi Molina. I'm originally from Colombia, from Medellin, Colombia. I grew up in South Florida. And prior to Sloan, I studied engineering. I got a master's and a bachelor's in material science engineering, and was working at the Boeing company doing a lot of space exploration and supporting their defense sector as well. Now at Sloan, I'm a second year, and this past summer, I'm actually my last week. I'm currently in Mexico City. I've been interning with Coca-Cola FEMSA, which is Coke's biggest distributor in the world, doing a supply chain operations role. So it's been very, very interesting to leave the aerospace sector and now work with beverages. Thank you.
Thanks, Santi. Emmy?
Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here tonight. So I'm Emmy Lopez Marino. Before joining LGO, I was in Argentina, where I'm from, working in consumer goods manufacturing as a chemical engineer. And after the LGO program, I joined the full-time Amgen, so I'm working in the biotech industry now.
Thanks, Emmy. Moni?
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here. I'm a second-year MBA, and prior to Sloan, I was working in corporate banking, covering Latin American financial institutions and technology companies. And this summer, I was interning at a private equity impact fund called Altura Capital. A super exciting internship, and I'm also from Ecuador originally.
Thanks, Moni. And last but not least, Gustavo.
Everyone, I'm Gustavo Castillo. Everyone calls me Gus, though. Prior to LGO, I worked at General Motors for 3 years. I was part of a rotational program, and I mostly focused on software and controls. So big electric vehicle fan. And in my last role at General Motors, I was working with autonomous vehicles, basically interfacing with cruise automation, but for GM. Now I'm working as a senior partner program manager for Motional, also an autonomous vehicle company. Funny enough, actually exactly what I wrote about on my application, but maybe I could talk about that later. But yeah, basically manage our Uber deployments. So we run a pilot in Las Vegas where you can call autonomous vehicles on the Strip. And I also manage a program in Los Angeles where we do autonomous food delivery.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Gustavo. So the first question that I want to start off with, and basically the way that we'll run this is we have some questions that we've prepared, classic questions around why Sloan, what the Hispanic and Latinx community looks like at Sloan, and some tips and suggestions that we may want to pass on to you all as you consider your MBA application process, especially here at MIT Sloan. And then we'll turn it over for Q&A from the audience. But to really kick us off, and I'd love to go in order that is shown on the screen, can you share a little bit about why you chose Sloan? What attracted you to MIT?
Hop in real quick. I mean, I personally really loved the LGO program. I mean, also just I knew I wanted to go back in like a technical field. I really liked the automotive industry. And like, you know, especially if you're interested in tech, I think there's like really no better school than MIT. Like there's tons of opportunities to interact with the engineering school. And I personally think it's just like such a collaborative place. Like when I first came to campus, I was like, I could just like see myself there. And I think it makes a big difference, just like the culture and community we have.
Quickly jump in. So having my experience in finance, I knew that I had developed a strong technical skill set, but I really wanted to transition to have a more impactful career. And through my exposure by connecting with students, I learned about the different initiatives that MIT had, including the MI3, which is the initiative leading anything impact related, which is pretty known and regarded in the program, as well as the exposure to the overall professors and just the research related to in the space. And then also, I think one of the key decisive points for me was the exposure that I had with the students, where I was able to connect and learn a lot about the culture. And really I benefited from a lot of the different programs and webinars hosted like this one, and connecting with students where I learned a lot about the culture. So it ended up sort of like meeting my expectations and beyond. So very excited.
Thank you, Gustavo and Monica. So I'm also an MGO like Gustavo, and I was really attracted to the program. I visited MIT in 2015 for the first time, and I randomly like started talking with the students in campus, and the passion transmitted by the people at MIT was that what drew me into deciding to go to pursue master's degree. And I was choosing between schools, and I was really looking for an engineering program. I was looking to continue developing my technical skills, especially in the area of chemical engineering and also environmental engineering. And then I came across the LGO program, which was a very good hybrid between being a technical leader while also a business leader. So it really attracted me, this program, and I finally decided to join. And it was one of the best decisions I've made.
Thanks for sharing. And for me, the reason that I chose Sloan, I come from an engineering background. However, I got to a point where I no longer wanted to be an engineer, but still wanted to be close to my engineering roots. And there just simply isn't a better school than MIT for kind of that balance. You've heard it from all the LGOs, but it makes it accessible to tap into that side of campus. That said, even though I am an engineer that ended up at Sloan for my MBA, it's not I wouldn't say it's the norm. I'd say that I've been actually really pleasantly surprised with how many other students come from a variety of fields, and all together because of such a diverse set of backgrounds and passions and avenues of life we want to pursue. It really does allow for great opportunities to learn from classmates. So the people really sold me as well. Even though I didn't come to campus till I was admitted, once I came for that admit weekend, when I was deciding between schools, I believe Emmy said, the energy was really, really impactful, and the people here are really something special. I really hope that everybody can get to be in a program that you feel at home like that.
Thanks, team. Yeah, I wanted to double tap on a couple of themes. There's a ton of passion here. It's amazing and so inspiring to hear from my classmates that are passionate about a wide variety of different things. And yes, we have heavy engineering on this call, which is great and amazing, but that's we're very diverse here when it comes to the fields that people come from and the fields that they're definitely interested in. The next question that I would love to have the panelists answer is about the Latino, Latinx, Latina, Hispanic community at Sloan. I would love for everyone to describe how they see the community and how they also perceive the culture and how the culture has supported their professional and personal growth. So whoever feels like they'd like to start, please do kick off with the question.
I can start this one off. For me, my background at every point, both academically and professionally, I was always very involved with Hispanic organizations. So before I even applied to Sloan, I started seeing what scholarships were out there, what communities, and I participated with MLT, if people on the call are familiar. If not, I highly recommend it. But I reached out to the Hispanic Business Club at MIT, and funny enough, Gus, who's also on the call on the panel, was randomly paired with me to be a mentor, and right from the get-go offered a helping hand in terms of the application, kind of the community here. So that was really impactful from before I even applied, right, just through the application process. And then once I got onto campus, a very pleasant surprise that I had as well was just, and I believe most MBA programs are like this, but how international the program is. And because I was born in Colombia, but grew up, I've been in the US for the past 20 plus years. I've never really been part of like a very, let's say, academic driven or academically strong Latino community. But at MIT, not only is the Latino community, but also the all international communities are very strong. I believe it's like 40% of the class is international. That was really, really cool for me to meet people from Argentina, from Colombia, from Peru, from all over the world, specifically the Latinx community, that really shined with like their past experiences. So before I even started, and then once I got onto campus, it's always been a very welcoming community to be able to find those you have things in common with, whether it's culture, food, sports, but the Latinx and Hispanic community is definitely very strong and present on campus.
I'll quickly jump in to echo what Santi said. And I mentioned earlier as well, prior to applying, I had already been connected with the HBC club and really spoke with a lot of the members who were not only welcoming, very engaged, and they really wanted me to succeed, even though I was not at MIT yet. And once I joined, I knew that from the moment I started, I wanted to be part of a strong community that was not only just like classmates, but also felt like family. So from the get-go, there was a lot of events organized by HBC and the community as a whole, where we all met, you know, at a URM barbecue, well, underrepresented minority barbecue. We've had like different events where we connected with one another. So from the very beginning, they were all very friendly. You know, if you had any questions, we had a specific chat where we can connect and ask questions just in general. And so there was always someone you could tap on their shoulder and say, hey, I need help with something. Someone would always respond and be available. And so the community overall for HBC and the Latinx community at school is very strong. And definitely something that I've been surprised in a positive way about, and really hope to continue driving that community in my second year as well.
I will jump in as well. Thank you, Monica and Santia. I completely agree with your experiences. It was the same for me a couple of or more years ago. And I would add that I really felt at home. And I think this was particularly important for the people that joined the program with families. So a lot of my classmates had kids, like 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, even babies. So there was a really nice support structure for the people that joined the Sloan with families. They used to live in the same area, and it was not only the organized activities like the formal structure and support groups that Sloan provides and MIT provides, but there was really a sense of community forming within Sloan and also within the LGO smaller family. So I would like to stress that I really felt at home. I was alone. I moved to the US from Argentina completely alone. I didn't have a family. But yeah, it was there was a very strong sense of community.
I definitely echo everything everyone said. I think you'll notice the community as soon as you start applying. Like, I definitely would not have gotten into MIT without the help of a lot of people in HBC, and there's just like tons of Latinos at MIT. And my last semester, I lived with 2 other people from Mexico, and it was just so much fun. Like, they'll have like events, and you go to like a Latino party, and then afterwards we like come home, make quesadillas, and like sing mariachi. So plenty of great memories. But you also find that the broader community will maybe not know what reggaeton. I mean, everyone knows now, but like I feel like everybody knew reggaeton by the time you graduate. So the community is strong.
Yeah, thanks, team. And to give you all an idea of some of the events that are going to be kind of front and center for HBC, which stands for the Hispanic Business Club here at MIT Sloan. We are kicking off the academic year pretty strongly with Hispanic Heritage Month. And a lot of that is focused on getting the community together, celebrating the contributions that Latino culture has made to the US, and just being together and supporting each other's goals as we navigate the Sloan experience and across our respective programs, as HBC is a club that serves all of Sloan. This next question, I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts here, because I feel like we could have a wide variety of insights. But often the MBA and MIT, et cetera, there's certain perceptions of the school, but even like of an MBA program externally. So I'm curious if you all can provide some thoughts on debunking a myth that maybe exists about pursuing an MBA or pursuing an MBA at MIT Sloan. I think we debunked one earlier around like, only engineering. We talked about how it's a wide variety of fields. We're very diverse, but curious to get your thoughts on either debunking something or maybe sharing an insight into something that surprised you about the MIT Sloan experience. And whoever feels compelled to start, feel free.
I can start with one. Actually, a story. When I applied to the program, I did it through like a support group in Argentina, like a scholarship. It doesn't matter, but these people told me that the environment was very competitive, but competitive in a way that it was like competitively like aggressive. And like right away when I joined, like that myth or that perception that was transmitted was completely debunked. It's a very collaborative environment. I would say that's one of the biggest things that I take away from my experience at MIT. Very creative environment and very collaborative. So of course there's gonna be competition, but it's like very healthy competition. So that was a big aha moment, like from the first like month or so that I joined MIT. I was a little bit cautious because of what I had been told, but it was a very, very nice and collaborative environment.
Thank you, Emmy. I'll quickly jump in here. I remember when I first started researching, connecting with students, people talked about Sloanies helping Sloanies. So it was very strange at the beginning. I said, okay, great. Maybe like you'll find 1 or 2 people who are very nice and willing to help you. Or maybe it is the Hispanic Business Club, which really provided a lot of support. But once I started at Sloan, I realized that it is a culture that's spread across the entire class, and second years willing to help first years. And even now, as we're second years willing to help prospective students. Just the culture is really ingrained in the overall class, which was really great to see. And also I would say that most of the people are very well accomplished, if not all very well accomplished. And you don't find anyone just really like boasting their ego, mentioning their accomplishments. Everybody is relatively humble. Like you're surprised to learn later of the things they have accomplished. And it's really nice to be in an environment where everybody's driven, ambitious, but also humble and collaborative along the way. So that was something great to see that I had heard about as I was applying, and my experience with the students I spoke with was reflected that specific impression, but I can confirm it now as a second year.
I just echoing off that last piece that Monica shared. I really agree with that one, because I don't think it was so much of a myth that I was preparing myself for or something I was worried about, but it's clear that, you know, any MBA program doesn't give a lot of accomplished people. I had like a classmate that it wasn't until the spring, and she was one of my better friends, is one of my better friends in the program, and it wasn't until like late in the spring that I found out she was like in Forbes 30 under 30. It's just like very casual things that like people are just like, you know, they're there to be a friend, to be a classmate, to learn. And then yeah, like exactly like Moni said, they'll have amazing accomplishments, but will be just very humble about. So that was very, very positive like surprise that I had. And then another one is kind of another extreme is you hear a lot of MBA programs being a lot of partying and traveling and networking, which is very, very true. But it really, you can do a lot of, and this is kind of like a tip as well, you can do a lot of prep, but unless you kind of maybe are coming to sponsorship or you already know exactly what you're going to do, there can be a lot of times that will be a little stressful and a little bit of you know, figuring out exactly what life choices you want to make in terms of career or city and these things. So more as a tip, you know, do your research before you start the program, and start thinking of what industries you really want to be in, because that'll help. It'll help so that you can party and travel as much without being too stressed over, you know, what jobs and things like that. So a little bit of prep goes a long way, which was something I wish I could have done a little more.
You know, sure. I think like when I first heard about like MIT offered an MBA, I thought that was kind of surprising. I was like, what? That's like kind of interesting. But yeah, like you know, I'm an engineer by background. I've always taken like technical classes. I have a strong quantitative background. I was very surprised that a lot of the classes in your business school are like very touchy-feely. Get to talk about your feelings a lot. So again, like they're, you know, in LGO for sure, there's like people with strong technical backgrounds, but like, you know, in the MBA program, like some people like really did not have a technical undergrad, did not have a technical role, and they're still able to contribute a lot in your discussions. And, you know, when it comes to being a leader and even working in management, like, you know, you kind of do work as like a therapist for your direct reports or for the other people around you. And it's like very important to be able to have like those mature conversations. And, you know, you learn a lot about discussing your emotions and, you know, talking through problems that I did not expect, but were very, very helpful.
Awesome. Thanks, team. Before we transition over to grab some questions from the audience, and there's been some amazing questions coming in. Thanks all, and please do keep them coming. I'm gonna transition a little bit and to think about the prospective students on the call and what they're about to go through. If you are applying this year, can you all share a tip or a recommendation, a consideration for folks to keep in mind that are applying either round 1, round 2 for this coming cycle, of something that could be useful for them, especially if they are a Latinx, Latina, or Hispanic identifying individual, as they take on this process, which we know is very difficult and it requires a lot of reflection and things like that, something that they could hold on to.
I can hop in with a quick thing. I always tell people the first year of your MBA program is actually the year you apply. And so, you know, you talk a lot about networking and getting to know other people during the MBA, but that's equally as important when you're applying. And so something that was helpful for me is just connecting with students. And you'll learn a ton about the culture there. They'll know, you know, good tips for applying, like, you know, whatever you're interested in, they probably have a classmate who might have similar interests. So just network as much as possible. And then those same people, like, you know, especially at MIT, it was especially true. Like I applied to other schools, and I thought Sloan students were the most willing to look over your application. Like they would almost like bend over backwards for you. And I think that just spoke very highly to me of the type of student that comes to MIT. So yeah, I mean, same things that apply when you're here of like just networking and meeting other people are especially true when you're applying.
I would say that while there's a lot of resources already posted on the website, there's a number of students that are available to help out, like Gus said. The only thing I would say that when you take advantage of these opportunities, definitely come prepared and ask those specific questions and learn about like what are some Sloan traditions or some sort of detailed information that you may not necessarily find on the website. So it's really good to come prepared with questions, specifically things that you're curious about. Students are mostly willing to connect you with others who are in the same area that you're looking for, or get you the answer that you're looking for in general. So definitely come prepared. As you know, the MIT application is very different than all of the other MBA applications. It has a video component, a cover letter, additional essays, and the overall interview as a whole. So it's a very comprehensive process. It's a holistic overview of everything you've accomplished. So definitely put your best foot forward, but definitely take advantage of the number of students who are willing to help out to not only perhaps review your application or just get all of your questions answered. So definitely I would say be prepared as early as you can and reach out for any help.
I can share, or sorry, I'll go quickly. I think a funny tip to keep in mind is this whole process of applying. It's a little like dating, and it takes two people to date, right? And one has to be accepting, and so does the other one, and one has to compliment and help out the other one, and vice versa. And it's easy to kind of fall in love or really picture yourself in a shiny, attractive place, but it has to be a good fit, right? You have to do your research. And a quick example, like I think New York is a great city, for example, and I applied to a couple schools in New York, but it wasn't a good fit for me because I didn't want to go into finance, or I didn't have a background that worked that way. And when I applied to those schools, it took a lot of energy and time from all my applications, but it wasn't realistically, like in hindsight, when I got rejected, it wasn't a good fit whatsoever, right? So really, take your time to make sure that not only is it something that you want, but it's something that makes sense with the school. Think of it that way.
So my advice is not going to be that tactic because the admissions process changed that way since like 6 years ago. But looking at like more broadly, I think my piece of advice would be to enjoy the process. It can get very stressful, but make sure to enjoy the process and be yourself, because that really shows on the application, and it will allow you, as Santi said, to make sure that it's really a good fit for you. Keeping honest to yourself.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And just to double click on the be yourself piece of advice, I feel like that's just like tremendous. And I'm sure you all as prospective students hear that a lot, but it is so genuinely powerful to just bring your authentic self to the application. It's really important. And like Santi said, it's a two-way street, right? So you also get to interview and really get to check out the various schools that you're interested in. And at least for MIT Sloan, like we highly encourage you all to get in touch with us, HBC and beyond, to learn about what it's like to be a Sloanie, visit campus, reach out to us. We are constantly even meeting prospective students for coffee at the Sloan Cafe, just to chat. Sometimes you can even come with us to our classes to check out what the academic life is like. So don't be a stranger and definitely engage with us. We're supportive and like earlier, as was mentioned, very collaborative. We're going to transition over to some of the questions that we're getting from the audience. So thank you all so much. I want one LGO and then one MBA to answer this question, which is, what is an average day in your MBA or LGO life look like? So whoever from the LGO feels strongly about this question and whoever from the MBAs.
I could hop in unless you want to, Amy. There is no average day. Let me just put it that way. There are like so many amazing opportunities as an LGO, you get to explore both the business school and also the engineering school. And I could just, like for me personally, like I was working on a startup while I was there, and like that was just such a cool experience. But I have classmates that really focus more on their engineering, curriculum, and they can get involved with research, or they can interact with other PhD students. But yeah, like I think class is like a small aspect of your experience in general. Like, and if you're spending too much time in class, you're probably not really getting the most out of your MIT experience. So I really encourage you to get involved with other projects, because it's just like, at work you have to like, really work with your manager and other superiors to get these like reach projects, but you could just sign up for them here. And so it's like a great way to just like get out of your comfort zone and try something new. So, I mean, I know that's not an average day, but it really is like a build your own experience. So whatever it is you're looking for, you can find.
I'd quickly chime in. I definitely agree on there's no regular day, aside from the sort of like overall classes during the course semester, you have a set schedule that you follow through, from the moment you start September all the way through December. But beyond the classes and launch events, I would find myself attending perhaps a Q&A with a CEO of a company, or attending a panel discussion from second years in the tech industry. So there's a number of events that happen that you can attend during your lunchtime, and then the ongoing projects that you would do with your classmates. So most of the work at the MBA is project work. And so a lot of the times you'll find sometimes in the afternoons to connect with them. And then as the evening comes, there's also a number of events that would be organized. For example, the wine club would have their typical wine club events once a month, where they would just sort of like provide a wine tasting, and you can get to network and get to know other students. That's just one day, but another day could be another event or other different things that you're driving. During my first year, I was very involved with HBC and also the Impact Investing Initiative. And so I was also planning different events where I was able to invite like an executive MBA to come talk about their experience in the impact field. And so there's a little bit of everything that you can do, but it is, it is whatever you make out of it. So definitely a lot of different things to do. I know as you're coming into the MBA, you're prepping and studying a lot. Your days are very long. And when you start, it's a different type of busy, because you're now balancing out classes and the social events, as well as the overall academic and your professional goals. So it's a number of busy things, but it is an exciting time because you're focusing on yourself. And it is the only time you actually don't have any commitments for work or anything. It's just, what is it that you want to get out of this next 2 years? And it's really, really exciting to be in this position. So
thanks both so much. Yeah, it's so interesting. I love what you said, Moni, about like it's a different type of busy. There's never a dull moment, and there's something so special about being able to focus on personal development, professional development, academic development. It's just amazing, the opportunity that is 2 years on focusing on self-growth, and at an incredible institution like MIT. And like Gus said earlier, like it really is designing your own experience to achieve your goals. And the more reflection that you all can do as applicants now in terms of what are your goals, what you're hoping to get out of a phenomenal program like the ones that we have here at Sloan, I think the more effective you will be navigating all of the incredible resources and the limited time that is the program. This next question is for all of the panelists. I would love to hear some reflections on what is a skill that you were able to pick up during your time at MIT if you're an alum, or this first year if you're a current student. And how have you been able to translate that skill over to industry? So whether you're working full-time or for the current students for your internship experience.
I can go ahead and start with this one. For me, I had 2 degrees in engineering. I'd always been an engineer. Only in my last role, in my full-time job at Boeing, did I start doing a little bit of more work outside of the lab, let's say. So something I was super excited for at MIT was just learning accounting, econ, finance, things like that. And there's a really good, obviously, curriculum and classes and professors you can take. But I really wasn't, I guess, expecting to really take away so much in such a short time in terms of thinking more broadly about a business, how what business functions, what's important, different metrics, and even with the interview process, if you go through consulting or product management, you start learning and thinking more about how these employers or business potentials really kind of function. So this summer I've been on the supply chain operation side of things, and obviously not in the lab. I'm obviously not in a very different setting, but I am more focused on thinking on the long-term effect of the work that I do, thinking on how this is going to impact future business strategy. Coca-Cola FEMSA in over 9 countries, so how they're all gonna intertwine and things like that. So I think just for me, the skill and the ability to think more broadly, as opposed to just very product or maybe specifically like in a subset, right? Just thinking a little bit more holistically has been one of the more impactful things.
I would say one of the skills I picked up at MIT, and I got to practice because it was a very practical class. It was in the negotiation class at MIT. I don't remember the name of the professor, but it was just an amazing class where every class we would have like a different case, and we would negotiate and learn like specific techniques. So I definitely apply it in my current job and then in my personal life. So that's a skill that I would highlight. And then not a skill, but I want to like strongly advocate for action lab classes. So classes where you get to work with solve problems from the real world. So companies that partner with MIT to solve real world pressing problems. So I took a class there and it was also amazing. But if I have to highlight a skill, that negotiation would be the one.
Maybe just add a quick one. This was nothing that was like learned in a class per se, but the LGO summer core is like extremely rigorous, and like just in general, the whole MBA process is busy just because there's so many things you're juggling. And any system I had before to like manage workload was like completely broken. I was like how I manage my own tasks. And so early on, you have to learn how to manage your workload and prioritize. And so like the first few weeks were just like kind of just getting like slapped in the face and like figuring out like what is a better system to manage my time. And it's a system I still use to this day. And that's something that like I definitely had to learn through the 2 years, and it helps a lot now in industry where there's a lot of pressure to perform. So I think especially now like that I'm in a job, it's like it's like there really is no summer break. So it's like, how do you make sure you're not burning yourself out and also feel like achieving your tasks and making the right prioritizations at work goes a really long way.
Nance, do we have time for me to answer this question, or do you want to move on to our next question?
Please do, please do.
Okay, awesome. Definitely echo what Gus said regarding time management. As I mentioned, there's a number of things that are happening on a daily basis. But beyond that, I think for me, specifically being interested in the impact investing space, I took a class called Impact Investing. And throughout the class, I learned the ins and outs of the industry, analyzing different companies, talking to different business leaders in the space. And as I moved on into my internship in impact investing, it was very applicable, not only to the specific internship that I'm doing now, but also to the industry as a whole, just learning, for example, how to measure impact and how to become accountable for doing what you're actually saying. And while impact and ESG saw a boom in 2022, it has also become a very polarizing space. And so it's been really interesting to get to know the ins and outs of the industry, to the different classes, the professors, and then translate that into my own work experience. And then also looking obviously full time as I look into next year graduating. So that was very helpful to me.
Thanks, team. I'm going to transition us a little bit to talk about our greater environment, which is being in the greater Boston area and in Cambridge specifically for MIT Sloan. Curious for folks to share, like none of us are from Boston, at least on this panel. There's plenty of folks that we go to school with who are from the New England area. But curious to get your thoughts on your experience. What was it like to move to Boston and to Cambridge for school? And for those who identify with the immigrant experience, can you share a little bit about if Boston was different than your prior home in the US or abroad?
Boston is very cold. No, but it was good. It wasn't that bad, the transition. I thought it was going to be worse. I come from Argentina, where the weather is a little bit more mild, but it was good. I love Boston. I got into running in Boston, and it's just, I lived in Cambridge, and I felt like it was a sort of a bubble because I lived in between like Harvard and MIT. So there were a lot of students. So it was just like going to the groceries and finding my classmates or like somebody else I knew. So it was really nice. I loved living in Boston. And I would say there are a lot of like international restaurants, and like it's very like a very vibrant city. So I would go back, but now I'm in Puerto Rico and I really like it as well.
I had lived prior to Boston, so I'm from Medellin, grew up in Miami, and then post-undergrad and for my graduate studies, I was in Los Angeles. So I'd never lived in a cold place in my life, and it wasn't easy. It was a little tough, but I think what makes it very doable is the community. And that goes not only for the weather, but I had lived in Miami, LA, where there's a big Hispanic influence. In Boston, there certainly is, but it's not as big in the Cambridge immediate area. It's more like in East Boston and other areas. But again, the classmates and the community at MIT, and there's a big overlap also, especially between like the Hispanic Business Club at MIT, and then I forget their exact name, but LASO, I believe, is the one at Harvard. There's a lot of overlap there. So between the Hispanic community and at MIT and the Hispanic community at Harvard, there's so many people that can make Cambridge feel like home, where even in the days of worst weather or just when you're the most homesick, there are people that you can spend a lot of time with, and your friends become family, so that's where the community, I think, is a little bit more impactful than the city itself in my case. But also New York is very accessible, and I feel like a lot of us have, just how big New York is, a lot of people there as well. So and there's like a lot of what's the name of the place? On the coast, I'm forgetting the name of the place, Cape Cod, places like that. There's a lot of like beautiful nature in the surrounding area. So and public transportation is great, something I didn't have in Miami or LA. So there's a lot of pros to the city in terms of infrastructure, but for shifting communities in terms of culture, that was a little harder for me, but the MIT as well as the Harvard community really helped out.
Moni, Gus, any thoughts on Boston, Cambridge in general, what it was like to move your life here basically for 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I mentioned that I am originally from Ecuador. I've been living in New Jersey for the past like 10 plus years. So relatively close to Boston, but still not the same thing. So when I moved there, I have roommates who are both Sloanies and I didn't get to know them before choosing to live with them. Thankfully, it ended up being an awesome experience. And I think that's generally the feedback I've received from other Sloanies as well who are rooming with other students. But I was quickly able to find a collaborative space. Like I didn't know anything about Boston. Cambridge is relatively small, so I made sure to first get to know the specific area. I think the tricky part for me initially was having my family drop me off and expecting me to give them a tour of Boston while it was my first a few days there as well. But I was able to get some tips and advice from other students who are from the area. So there's definitely a lot of resources. And even now, the students that are incoming to this class, there's a number of chats where everybody's asking, like, where can I find XYZ? And a number of people jump in to say, like, here's where you can find it. So I think the overall culture of asking for questions, just asking advice to second years is like very open. And so I didn't find any challenging in getting answers to any questions, food recommendations, places to go, or just transportation in general. So it's been a good experience.
I grew up in Los Angeles, so definitely used to the warmth. I lived in Michigan before, so Michigan was worse. I mean, in terms of like pretty similar climate, but it's way sunnier in Boston. So like that at least makes a big difference in the winter. I think I mean, Boston is such a beautiful city. It is such a college town. Like there's like tons of universities. And so in general, I find that people are, like at MIT and beyond are just like very interesting. Everyone's like very well educated. So you just like, you'll be at a bar and you'll meet like an astrophysics PhD or something. And it is just like such a neat experience. I love how walkable Boston is. It was my first time ever living without a car, and I'm a massive car person, having lived in like LA and also then Detroit, which is Motor City. And I loved it so much that when I moved back to LA, I actually still don't have a car, and I've like really tried to challenge myself to make LA more of a walkable city. So I think it's a really cool town. Like it's close to New York. We did tons of weekend trips to New York. Close to Maine, to the outdoors if you want to go out there. So there's plenty to do. A lot of people bash on the food scene in Boston, but you'll find plenty of good restaurants too.
Thanks, team. Yeah, it's really great. Honestly, at least for my experience, like I hadn't lived this far north prior to MIT, but it is such a special place to be a student here. So highly encourage you all to come explore, come to campus, let us know that you're coming. To wrap us up here, there's been a couple of questions in the chat about how can we get in touch with you all as students and alum? How do we get in touch with the Hispanic Business Club? And I'm going to turn it over to Moni, who is one of the co-presidents of HBC, to offer some thoughts on that. And then I'll also be providing a resource in the chat for you all so that you can be in constant touch with current students. But before I do that, over to you, Moni.
Thank you, Nancy. So yeah, definitely, as I mentioned, we're very excited to help students with any advice throughout the application process. On our website, you could easily find it, HBC Sloan. We have a specific general email that you can reach out to us, or we also have a prospective student outreach link right on the website where you can tell us a little bit about where you are in the process, what are you looking to do, the industries that you're coming from and interested in transitioning. When you submit that specific form, we're able to quickly see if we can find somebody that is with a similar experience to connect you with, or just in general connect you with anybody who would be able to help and assist. We're very collaborative, very excited to help prospective students. And we also have a Ask a Sloanie chat specifically focused on the underrepresented minority community. So that's something that we have prospective students help out if you have any questions, and just put it in the chat so we can share that as well. And feel free to join if you identify as a underrepresented minority or Latinx.
Thanks, Moni. So essentially, the conversation does not end here. We've talked a lot in this past hour about our culture here at Sloan. Very collaborative, very supportive. We definitely would love to connect with you all. If you are on campus at any point, let us know. We're happy to chat with you in person, show you a little bit about what it's like to be a Sloanie nowadays. I'll also be adding the link to the URM WhatsApp chat, Ask a Sloanie, into the chat feature that you have access to, so you can feel free to join that. We have a buddy program that we manage as well. So if it would be helpful for you to get connected with a current student as you navigate this process, please feel free. And I'd love to invite the panelists, if they're open to it, just as Santi just did, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn as well. We wish you all the best in this process. And just to echo what Emmy said earlier, enjoy it. It is pretty amazing to set aside time as you navigate the application process to reflect and to think about where you want to take your career and your personal, academic, and professional development. So we wish you all the best and count on us to be as helpful as we can. And with that, please join me in giving the panelists a virtual round of applause for their time and reflections. It's quite an honor to be on this panel with my classmates and the fellow alums as well. Terrell, over to you for closing.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you to the panel for providing an insight into your experience at Sloan. This was a fantastic conversation. I was able to learn a few things, as well as get triggered by a lot of the things we talked about in terms of moving from a warmer climate to a cold climate. I actually moved from Florida last year to Boston, so I can definitely attest to Santi's transition to the Boston area. But there's a lot to do here. There's always something going on in the Boston area, so you can always find community in some aspect of the city and the greater Boston area. We're going to transition to more so the application deadline. So for those of you that are interested in pursuing your MBA here at Sloan, our application is now live. You can see the corresponding deadlines for the MBA program, but all of our other programs as well. If you all are interested in, tap into the LGO program that was mentioned tonight. A slight change to the LGO, you will only see there's one application deadline for this upcoming year. So November 8th is the deadline for LGO. So as you will see, for those that are interested in applying round 2, you have to apply round 1 for LGO because that's the deadline, and if you're interested in that particular program. And you can actually learn more about the Hispanic Business Club here as well. So being able to go to our diversity website for Sloan, but also being able to connect with Hispanic Business Club via their Sloan Group website, but also at their email, which is provided here below. We want to thank you all again for being here and hope you all have a great night. And we look forward to seeing you at more events in the future.